Okay. The May 9th, 2024 City of Friendswood Planning Zoning Commission regular meeting is now called to order. We will begin by receiving communications from the public. To comply with provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the Commission may not deliberate on subjects discussed under this agenda item. However, the Commission may direct such subjects be placed on a later regular Commission agenda for discussion and or possible action. Is there anybody that would like to speak? No? Next is our consent agenda. These items are considered routine or ministerial in nature and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of such items unless the Commissioner so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item A, consider approval of the minutes for the regular meeting held Thursday, April 11th, 2024. B, consider approving the Castle Narnia Way final plat. C, consider approving the Zeller Estates final plat. Do we have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Next on the agenda are action items. According to the Planning and Zoning Rules of Procedure, all actions of the Commission shall be made by an affirmative vote of a simple majority of the Commissioners present at such Commission meetings. Item A, zone change request for the properties 4201 and 4209 FM 528 to change from PUD 2015-18 to CSC/SUP. Item I, conduct a public hearing regarding the request for a zone classification change for property located at 4201 and 4209 FM 528 Road, being 31.18 acres known as Reserves B and D in the final plat of Clear Creek Community Church of Friendswood, recorded in Harris County Real Property Records, RP-2020-230485. Harris County, Friendswood, Texas, to change from Planned Unit Development, PUD, 2015-18 to Community Shopping Center, CSC, with a specific use permit to allow NAICS use number 8131 religious organizations. Aubrey, can you provide a staff presentation?
Yes, sir. So this is a cleanup item. If you remember back to 2015, I don't think any of you were on the commission then. Unfortunately, I was here. No. But that was the PUD application. I think it was the third one on this property that formulated the, it was a mixed-use development that included the church property. It had originally had some multifamily units and some retail developments as well. When council approved it, they removed the multifamily part, so it was all just commercial. So the church moved forward with their development and ultimately ended up selling off the 106 acres to Tanos Development Group, which is being developed now. So this is a cleanup item because the zoning that the church is a part of is basically moot because of the rest of the property has changed zoning. So this is to change the property to CSC with the SUP for the church use. They constructed the church around 2019 to 2022. They added a true grid parking system. They've added a fenced-in area and a storage building, a slide and shade structure. So all of the site plans for those items are combined and will be part of their SUP. So anything they add in the future, if it's significant structures, may require an amendment to the SUP. But like I said, it's just cleanup, nothing major.
Okay. Would the applicant like to present any information?
I don't think they're here.
Would anyone like to, from the public, like to comment on in support of the proposed change? Would anyone from the public like to comment against the proposed change? No? Item 2, consider a recommendation to City Council for the requested zone classification change for property located at 4201 and 4209 FM 528 Road to change from Planned Unit Development, PUD 2015-18 to Community Shopping Center, CSC, with a specific use permit to allow NAICS use 8131 religious organizations. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Aubrey, anything additional?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll start discussion with Commissioner Rice.
Looks fine to me. I just have a question. On the reserves A and C, what happens to those?
So those will be, well, let's see, hang on, are those let's see.
It's the park, or I guess a detention drainage reserve.
Yes, so that's the Danos Development owns those now, and so they'll be replatted as part of that development. And then they have private agreements for them. The drainage for the church will be provided with the new detention pond. And then they're going to share parking. So the additional parking lot that he's building will be intended to share with the church.
So do those two reserves, do they stay whatever the current zoning is until he replats? Or?
They're part of the new PUD.
Okay. I was a little confused on the transition there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Commissioner Bounds?
No, sir.
Commissioner Sessom?
The church doesn't plan to build anything else on here. Now that they're CSC, they could build commercial, but I guess they don't have enough land to really do anything.
No, they would have to have the detention and the space for it and everything. So I'm not aware of any additional plans.
Yeah, that Reserve A, there's a little bit of room there, and they could maybe put a little. But anyway, okay, fair enough. They haven't expressed any interest in that.
No, well, Reserve A is part of the new PUD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Conrad?
It all looks good to me. No
Commissioner
questions.
Mance?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Nothing to add myself. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, next on our agenda is discussions. Item A, discussion regarding parking regulations as a follow-up to the ad hoc parking subcommittee presentation and recommendations to City Council. Commissioner Rice, you want to start out the discussion?
Let Aubrey start.
Okay.
So this is just a discussion. We're not taking any action tonight. Just wanted to update you all. The ad hoc parking subcommittee report was given to City Council in their recommendation of the reducing the parking regulations by 20%, reviewing again in 2 years, and adding more emphasis on alternate plans for parking. And so the 20% reduction in parking wasn't 100% favored by City Council. So they asked it to come back to the commission. So the plan is to take it to the planning subcommittee. Marcus is on that subcommittee, so we'll take it back there and digest a little bit more information about it, and then bring it back to you all for further discussion. Okay. So that's about it.
Good. Anybody have anything else to ask or add?
I like the idea of not making it a requirement, but obviously free market. If people want parking, if people want, for your business to have enough room for everybody, they can have the parking if they desire it. So I'm torn on this at first, but I think if it's not a requirement by us for them to have to do it, I think that's okay as long as they have the ability. If they want to do it, they can. So some interesting stats too about 16-year-old drivers. I couldn't believe.
Anybody else? Okay. Next on our agenda is communications. Item A is training session 2 for commissioners, subdivision ordinance overview, to be presented by Aubrey Harbin. Aubrey Harbin.
I'm not here to do this presentation. It's a little easier from here.
Could you please introduce yourself?
All right, So this is just at our annual retreat. We talked about doing our training sessions just throughout the year. So we did training session 1 a couple of months ago, just the overview of the city, our development process, the website, and all that. So this is the next step, is just an overview of the subdivision ordinance. I was hoping Willie was going to be here tonight, so he's going to have to watch it on YouTube. So, like I said, it's just an overview. I know that's a pretty dry document, so nobody wants to read the whole thing, but maybe if we hit some of the high points, then in the future when you think, oh, there was something, in there, and you can always go to municode.com and pull up the ordinance and do a search for, if you're thinking of a word or something. So that's always available to you. So section 1 just outlines the purpose. So the purpose of the subdivision ordinance is conformity with the comprehensive plan and the design criteria manual. It also allows alternate standards to be approved with a PUD by city council, and then just requires that a developer preserve natural features such as large trees, water courses, historical spots, and similar community assets that would add attractiveness and value to the property unless such preservation results in an economic penalty of such magnitude that the development of the land is infeasible. Section 2 is just statutory authority and the jurisdiction. So the city of Friendswood is a home rule city, so our authority to require platting is granted by the local government code, which is chapter 212. The plat is required to subdivide property, and permits cannot be issued until a plat is recorded, if a plat is required. Exemptions to platting would be large tract divisions, so 5 acres or more, and no public infrastructure being dedicated. We do have an exemption form that they can fill out, and we'll give them a certificate. Basically, like, as long as the property stays in that configuration, we're not going to require a plat at that time. Infill tracts that are 5 acres or less that have existing access and existing utilities are exempt, and then annexed and consolidated. That's our most, the infill tracts is our most common certificate applying exemptions, and then annexed and consolidated areas. We do allow partial plat approvals. So in this case, if you had, a large tract and an owner's only wanting to develop 2 acres of it, or 5 acres, so there's requirements. So each piece has to have access. Each piece has to be greater than 5 acres. There has to be an exhibit shown on the plat identifying the 2 or multiple tracts, and then an owner acknowledgement has to be filed stating that they'll plat the remainder of the property in the future under the regulations at that time. So section 3 is definitions. I just listed a few on here. This is not all inclusive, but like I said, if you're ever curious about what something means, there might be a definition in the subdivision ordinance that might provide you some clarification. The next section is plat submittal and filing. So we always require an applicant to attend a DRC meeting as the first step in any development process. Even if they're, just considering, we'd rather give them information up front and walk them through processes. A master plan is encouraged, although not required. A preliminary plat is more for, it's a planning document. Like, they have to show the contours, and we just make sure that we're going to be able to provide utilities to the property. A final plat, the contours are removed from the plat, and all the signatures are added to it. A replat is a redesign of a recorded plat. So if they're subdividing or changing anything in a recorded plat, then that becomes a replat. A short form final plat is 4 lots or less. They have, with access, you can't dedicate easements with a short form final. It's just a more simplified method for some cases. An amending plat is a corrections plat, and there's a long list in local government code as to what all those amendments can be. Those are approved by staff and recorded as a correction. And then a vacating plat. So a vacating plat basically an owner wants to, it totally does away with the recorded plat and reverts to whatever plat was on the property before that. So I think I've only done one or two of those since I've been here, so not real common. A meets and bounds, I just threw this in there, a meets and bounds description is not to be confused with a plat. That's just a legal description of a property, and a legal description is required to be shown on the face of the plat per state law. So decisions of the commission. This is, so these are all the new, we keep calling them new, it's been a few years now, but so action required by the commission. So we always refer to the 30 days that we have to take action within 30 days. A plat is deemed approved unless we take action in 30 days. Prior to action by staff, an applicant may submit a written notice of withdrawal of the plat once they submit one. That suspends the 30-day period. And when they get ready to submit, within 6 months, they have to file a notice of refiling, and that starts a new 30-day period. And that's only allowed one time per plat. An applicant can also request in writing an extension of a 30-day period, not to exceed an additional 30 days, and that is submitted to the commission for consideration. P&Z decisions, you have to be approved with conditions, or disapproved with reasons. The latter two decisions require a written statement of conditions or reasons. And then an applicant may submit a written response. There's no deadline on their resubmittal. But once they do resubmit, there's a decision required within 15 days by the commission. Inaction, so if the applicant files a response and the commission does not disapprove the plat within 15 days, it's automatically approved. So this is why we have to keep submittal schedules and deadlines and all that fun stuff. So general design requirements of a plat. So these are just highlights. There's sections for each one of these topics, so with criteria in them. So public and private local streets, collector streets, major thoroughfares and arterial streets, buffering major thoroughfares, street right-of-way widths, which the table is on there, classifying the different types of streets. There's definitions and criteria for partial or half streets, street names, gates on private streets, 1-foot reserves, cul-de-sacs, sidewalks, blocks, street lighting, signage, and signalization. All easements within a plat boundary are required to be shown on the plat, as well as all the easements within 200 feet of the plat. Sometimes those are important for drainage and utility purposes. So there are easements for utilities, there's drainage easements, easement boundaries, and then sidewalk easements if necessary, if they can't fit a sidewalk in the right-of-way. We also, there might be sign easements, different things like that. Lot design requirements. So our commercial and residential regulation matrices are in the zoning ordinance. Only front build lines are shown on plats, but the regulation matrices define minimum lot sizes, building setbacks, density. That is the residential matrix, and then the commercial one. And then we also have setbacks for pipelines. The fire prevention and suppression. So fire suppression and protection measures are required according to the American Water Works Association, National Fire Protection Association. And in some instances, for fire protection only, above ground water storage tanks may be allowed as an alternate water source. Construction plans and specifications. So after a preliminary plat, they submit the infrastructure plans. So the submittal requirements are laid out in the subdivision ordinance. Engineering, public works, and fire marshal usually approve those, or review and approve those plans. So approval or disapproval with reasons is required within 30 days. And then inspections are required throughout the construction process. Public infrastructure must be accepted by city council. So once water, sewer, drainage is installed for a new subdivision, engineering has project managers that oversee the inspections. They do all the testing to make sure the water is safe, meets all of our requirements, make sure the drainage is there, and then they'll bring it to city council for acceptance. Then we record a plat, and then the builder can get permits. As-built drawings are required prior to acceptance. So you have infrastructure plans, but in the field, they may have to make changes here and there. So the as-built drawings are required for our records, so we know actually where manholes are and things like that, fire hydrants. And then our GIS department actually uses those drawings to put into our GIS system and our different layers of information for future use. And then a maintenance bond is required for 1 year for the water, sewer, drainage. Engineering and construction standards. So our design criteria manual is managed by our engineering department and the city engineer. So all the sections in that include, and these are more specific design criteria, pipe sizes, separation, all that good stuff. So for water, sewer, storm drains, street paving, site development, parking, downtown district amenities, qualified tree list, the traffic control sign policy, and our streetlight policy. And this is adopted by resolution. And any deviations from that, there's a design modification form that is reviewed by our city engineer. Tree preservation, mitigation, and maintenance. This just refers to the zoning ordinance. So there's no additional criteria here. And parks and recreation areas. So actual parkland dedication is only required for developments with 655 lots or more. And that minimum park acreage, if it was dedicated, is 5 acres. We don't really get a lot of developments that big, other than West Ranch was 1,500 lots. So the typical way we get improvements to our parks is the parkland dedication fee. It's $600 per dwelling unit. That's paid at the time of building permit, and that does go to our parks department to maintain and improve parks. Partial credit for parkland, private recreation facilities, or open space can be obtained. Parks department would review those requests and have to approve those. Fees. So we have platting fees. Filing fees are required by the county to actually record the plats and the deed restrictions, things like that. Construction plan review fees and impact fees. And variances. This is kind of when we did the subdivision ordinance rewrite, we added this section, so it's somewhat new to us. So P&Z may grant variances to Appendix B, so that's just this chapter, upon a showing by clear and convincing evidence by the applicant that there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property in question, that enforcement of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of a substantial property right, and that such variance, if granted, would not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property or property rights in the vicinity. So the applicant's responsibility in a variance case is the burden of proof that Appendix B imposes undue hardship or disproportionate burden on the applicant. They can submit statements, studies, and other relevant information. It must be submitted as part of their application. P&Z may require additional information to be provided before taking action, and false information shall cause the variance to be denied, or if the variance is approved and then we find false information, it's null and void. For a variance request, the fee, notice, and public hearing are required or the same as a zone change request. Copy of this section is to be included with the property owner notices. And to approve a variance, at least 3/4 of the members present and voting for the commission would have to vote to approve it, and they have to answer yes to all 5 of these criteria. Factors that may not be considered to support the granting of a variance include personal and/or economic hardship, misrepresentation of property conditions, uses, or regulations by a seller or agent, errors made by a surveyor, contractor, or builder, increasing the profit, income, or competitive advantage of the applicant, and threats to to locate or relocate outside of the city or cancel a scale back of a project if a variance is denied. Appeals to variances that are denied go to City Council. Those must be filed within 14 days of P&Z's decision, either by the applicant's written appeal or a written request by 2 members of City Council to place it on a council agenda. Council's decision is required within 45 days, and then a majority vote is required to affirm, modify, or reverse the decision, and City Council decision is final. So that is it. Y'all have any questions? Let me know. You're welcome.
Okay, item B, the next Planning and Zoning Commission regular meetings are scheduled for Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, and Thursday, June 13th, 2024. Item C, your April 2024 DRC report is in your backup material. And item D, receive council liaison updates concerning action taken by the City Council on P&Z related items. Councilmember Matranga, how are you?
Good evening, commissioners.
Hello.
Glad to be here. Glad to see you guys. 2 things to pass along. One is on Monday's city council meeting, we agreed with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation for the property on 528 near Windsong to change that property's zone classification from single-family residential to neighborhood commercial, and that was approved by City Council. So thank you for your work on that. The second thing is just passing along my thanks for you taking up the parking requirements in the city and the parking regulations. Thank y'all for taking that up and taking a look at that. And that's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, we have commissioner updates. Start with Commissioner Rives.
No updates from me.
Commissioner Conrad.
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Mann.
Just happy to be here.
Commissioner Sassen.
Nothing.
Commissioner Bounds.
Thank you to the support staff, and thank you for the general public showing up.
Well said. Nothing additional for me. Aubrey, you have anything additional to add? No, sir. Becky? And Karen?
Just that there's going to be a special council meeting on the 14th where we'll swear in the new council members and also canvass the results of the election.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, with that, thank you everyone for attending this evening in the May 9th, 2024